Well, hello, hello, hello. Good evening. So nice to see you tonight. Welcome back. This may be your first Michelle Gardner Ince, aka GI, and Minority or GovCon. It's just my pleasure to be here with you tonight. I'm so thankful. Joined by some other folks who are normally on Wednesday night, but the is a Wednesday, normally a that gather. We've got various different experts that are very skilled and knowledgeable. Questions and just provide a safe space. But because we decided we would go live every day this week. So this is day 4. How many of you, let me see who's out here. If you have, please, I'm going to bring it up. Please introduce yourself, share this out, and let me see, I just put it up there on the screen. But the key thing is this isn't an opportunity for you demystifying government contracting space. For that is celebrate, and then sometimes people come to either another business owner or even have knowledge in that area. Tonight, my sister in service, my Air Force hour where she was, so she won't be joining us tonight. Just a minute, I got one of our wonderful experts joining us. Let's see if we can add. Glad to see you. How are you? Glad you could join us. And we're going to get started in just a minute. So wherever you're going to be, I'm doing intros and then we'll come right on back. So I wanted to say that, again, we've been doing demystifying government contracting for over a year. LinkedIn started their LinkedIn audio feature, and I was one of the beta testers. And so I said, guess what? This opportunity, you know, they say to whom much is given. If I was going to have this opportunity, I was going to leverage that opportunity to facilitate much more communication amongst the community, the minority, disabled, and LGBTQ 3985 defines it. And so you can just have a two-way conversation in a manner. And that's one of the things that the exec haven't read it. You can find that at White House. And the executive summaries of all of the or the federal agencies are located there. By the way, if you want to your customer and who is, you know, you can just Google Department of Homeland Security Equity Action. The things that particular, the very first federal wide one of our folks coming in. I'm just doing some Chanel and the executive order challenges all of the federal agencies to engage differently, to increase the vendor base, to remove barriers and burdens to the government, and increase the vendor base. For those of you who may not understand that terminology, means to serve community vendors, and they're listed on the screen, into, for example, while the federal government, businesses, small and diverse businesses, they're doing business. And this is an opportunity for us to talk about many of the factors that are associated with executive order. Focus this week on empowering underserved, specifically in the area of 5 culture on Monday. That's the culture of government. How do they buy the way they buy? Are some of their acquisitions to bringing in more small businesses? We also talked about the culture. Feel entitled. Hey, I've got the, the women, veteran, minority hub zone, certain gimme. So we talked about on both sides how, and realize you're being given an opportunity. You're being given opportunities to have more access. Contracts are awarded, not given. And federal government to look at, can we buy differently? Can we break out, possibly provide opportunities for companies to do business? And then we talked yesterday, right? Capacity is important. The government only, there's quite a few large acquisitions, is mainly very stringent and dictated education and qualification requirements of contract actions. And so, their capacity, so thereby, that's why we have some of these larger acquisitions to in the acquisition process. But then we also talk expand their capacity. Let me see here who's in the chat. How do small businesses increase their capacity? Say welcome to Jonathan. My audio is skipping. Is my audio skipping? If that, I might have to go off camera. How am I sounding now, Jonathan? Does that sound better? The bandwidth might be. Kathy, Zach for joining. Thank you, Jonathan, for joining. Please comment in the there are some resources that we talked about last night, and I put those in the chat. Hopefully they post them separately. I tried to post them all together. So thank you, Neil, which is fine with me. But I would go on video, but that is okay. Well, guess what? Congratulations also on your recognized by SBA in the state of Texas. Are you able to introduce yourself? And you can put it in the chat, either one. I'll come back, Stephanie, if you can't hear. Good evening. I want to say, oh, hey, there you are.
Your sound is still glitching, so I didn't know if you were talking to me or not.
Yes. Oh, so is my audio still glitching?
Yes.
Okay, let anybody in the audience, is that better? Still skipping? That's what you said. Okay, Kathy, let me try. I will go ahead and introduce yourself, Stephanie. And if you
I didn't get the last part. I didn't get the last part after you said to introduce yourself.
Video and introduce yourself, because that may save some of the bandwidth.
Okay. So you want me to go off camera after I introduced myself?
Let's see if we can get the bandwidth to video. There we go.
Okay.
Stephanie, if you would go ahead and introduce yourself.
Sure. Good evening, everyone.
Wi-Fi.
Yes. Good evening, everyone. My name is Stephanie Johnson, and I am the CEO and founder of Simmons Johnson Consulting, LLC, out of Texas. We are one of the few African-American, woman-owned CPA firm in the state of Texas. And our specialty includes compliance, auditing, and disaster recovery, which is also important in the state of Texas, especially starting next month when hurricane season officially begins. So we're here to assist both at the federal, state, and local levels. And I'm so glad to be here.
Thank you. How do I sound now? You sound good, Stephanie. Thank you for joining us.
Okay, and you sound good as well.
Okay, so that must be it. The bandwidth can't take all this power. Can't take seeing all this power. That's okay. They're gonna hear it though. They're gonna hear it though. Thank you for joining us. Hey, Lady Chanel.
Hey.
How are you? Would you introduce yourself?
Chanel Glover, CEO of Ambitious Strategies, also business advisor to some technical assistance centers, to include procurement advisor to one of LA's largest chambers, LA Area Chamber of Commerce. I advise businesses in how to secure, manage, and expand in the government contract sector, also grants, loans as well. In addition, I work with the tech industry to include Silicon Valley and how to sell their products and modify them for government service. Thank you, everyone, for attending. And again, thank you, Michelle, for the platform.
Absolutely. I don't know. Look like we lost Stephanie for a while. Hopefully she'll be back. I do want to go through a few. Oh, here she is. She's back. I do want to go through a few administrative remarks. First of all, I do want to say that my 9-to-5 job. I work for the Department of Veteran Affairs, but nothing that is said here is tied to the Department of Veteran Affairs or any other federal agency. That all opinions, etc., are those of the individuals, and it's important that any information you get here, that you validate it and make choices in an informed manner. I want to again welcome you. I want to thank Kathy, Jonathan, Nia, Tanisha. Thank you so much for joining. Share this out with your network, and we're going to go ahead and get started. So let me kind of lay the groundwork. I'm so honored that I got these two amazing, knowledgeable ladies who understand and have been in business for a while. We're going to be talking about business capabilities, ladies, not only from a vendor standpoint, but also the capabilities of our government officials, and how some of the time we have to manage our expectations, I'll put it that way, of our government partners. We think that because they work in an agency, they know everything about a particular acquisition from A to Z, and we know that that is sometimes not true. But first, let's talk about the importance of the capabilities of vendors. How many of you, if you will put in the chat, do you have a capability statement? Do you have a capability statement? Please introduce yourself, put your name, your location, your product or service. If you're in need of a teaming partner or maybe it's a service. I'm looking for a good accounting partner, or I'm looking for an HR person to help me with staffing and benefits, whatever it is. Put that in the chat and then say, yes, I have a capability statement, or no, or I'm working on it. So I'll give you just a few minutes to do that. Okay, so Tanisha says yes. And can you tell us, Tanisha, what you do, if you'll put that in the chat? Who else? What about Nia, Kathy, Zach? Do you all have capability statements? And I said last night that whoever is here for the most days, so this is day 4, we're going all the way to day 7. So the last session will be a 30-minute session on Saturday, which will be just kind of a wrap up. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about money, capital. On Friday, we're going to talk about compliance. And then on Saturday, we're just going to kind of wrap it up. And then next week, we'll be back to our regularly scheduled time, which is every Wednesday from 7 to 8 or 8:30, depending. Tonight, we'll probably end at 8, unless y'all come with some questions. I haven't even seen people put in the chat whether or not they have a capability statement or not. So Chanel, I know you've worked with the SBA and in various other capacities. Can you talk a little bit about the importance of a capability statement and what it really does, and how it assists from a inside the government standpoint?
Capability statement is pretty much like your resume for your company. So on your capability statement, you will capture your service, a high level of your services. You go into your core services, because sometimes companies have too many services listed. So you go into your core services, and this will help whoever's looking at it on the government's end to pretty much have a quick overview of your company. So you have your contact information, what makes your company unique. You can list your past performance, your next codes, your DUNS, cage. So all the numbers that are relevant, or identifiers that are relevant, so that the person reviewing it will be able to, one, get in contact with your company, see if you're within their categories that they service as far as your codes. And then also see what certifications you have. You want to include your certifications that are relevant to that level of government, because, for example, the federal government has programs that are not utilized on a state level and vice versa. So also, I will recommend that you have multiple capability statements, because for some of you, you may have several sets of core services, and you want to make sure that your capability statement speaks to whichever customer or potential customer that you're presenting it to. So if you have services within IT and you're trying to present janitorial services, then you need to have, in my opinion, and I would recommend, more than one capability statement. So also make sure your capability statement is not too long. Most of the time, people, especially at events, they receive many of these capability statements or through their email. You want to catch their attention on the front page if it's more than one page. And then also, I would recommend at least some mention of past performance, just so that they know if your business is experienced or not. You don't have to go into great detail. And then also, one other mistake that I see people make is that the capability statement is too wordy. So you want to make sure that it gets straight to the point, and that you're speaking the language and have the tone and the acronyms, if you can, of your customer, if you're using a capability statement that you're going to modify. For the most
Perfect, perfect,
Yeah, for the most
perfect. That
part,
I was
the government uses this as your resume for your company initially.
great. I was going to ask that all of those are spot on, and I've seen capability statements and all different, where some people have more graphics than others. I was going to ask Stephanie, who was recently highlighted and recognized by SBA in the state of Texas. Would you tell us what do you think you have on your capability statement that has made you a standout? Can you share some of that,
Sure.
Stephanie?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Wonderful.
We hear you perfectly.
You know, there's one thing that I want to say is to everyone on the call. As you grow your company, your capability statement changes. And also look at it from the standpoint, it's evergreen, because as you grow, there's some things that you may want to put on your capability statement and some things you may want to take off. And also, Chanel mentioned having multiple capability statements. For example, here in Texas, they don't use the word NAICS. They don't care about NAICS. They have another acronym, I think it's MGIP, and that's critical for the state of Texas. So that leads into be conscious and cognizant of who you're presenting your capability statement to. At the state level, at the federal level, or the local level, just be careful, because like Chanel said, you need to speak their language. And I know one of the major things here in Texas is they don't care about NAICS code. They care about the
That is
state code.
that's so appropriate and perfect, because I was doing every week on my day job. Every Tuesday, we do Vet Biz Lady office hours, right, and networking. And so during the session, not this week. Oh, yes, it was this week. One of our directors went into SAM Live with the group that was there. And one of the things we were saying is that SAM is to be used not just for looking for future opportunities, but looking at the client, right? And it's almost like studying a book of I'm going to France now. So I need to know, how do they speak in France? When France is talking about, French bread, or they're talking about a souffle, that is not the same souffle and French bread that you get in the United States. And how reading previous solicitations will allow you to see how that particular organization communicates about what they're buying. And the other thing is, it's important. Dr. Davis says it all the time, this is a time when you can benchmark. He said cheat, but I like the word benchmark better, is, funnel hack or look at your competitors. I don't care if it's a $1 billion Fortune 500 company. How do they communicate? How does their capability statement and the information they have on their website look? And I think that's really, really important, because like you said, if you don't know who you're talking to, you roll up with a NAICS codes in Texas and they'll go, what is this? Which is another key factor, that what is needed at the federal level is not the same as the state, and it may not be the same as local, and it may not be the same as a education or corporate, right? I know corporate uses different terminology too. So Nia, thank you for that question. Do you recommend putting anything on the backside of the capability statement? Ladies, either one of you want to take a stab at that?
I would recommend, if you have enough information, but if it's like a quarter of the sheet, I wouldn't recommend like adding something to the backside. If you have supplemental documents, maybe you want to make it an additional sheet. But if you have enough information, I guess you could do a backside if you have enough information there. The key thing is just to make sure the information is relevant and that it's like concise, because if you're adding too much information, you could lose, your customer. So you just want to make sure whatever you have, even if you have to put a link to a website or something else, just make sure. Yeah.
Or
Yes,
QR
just make
code.
sure the information is straight to the point, and you're not just putting things on there that may, lose their attention, or that's a distraction.
Good point, Stephanie. Anything before we? I got another point, but I want to give you an opportunity.
No, I agree with Chanel. I've never had anything on the back of my CAPE statements, and I was just in a session yesterday, and the person says, "Don't waste your time," and they said, "For sure, don't add pictures to the back. They don't want to see pictures. They want the meat of because you can put the meat on the first sheet." And you know what? I added a QR code to my capability statement, the last change I made, which, I've been in business 6 years. I'm probably on my 10th iteration of my capability statement. Wow. Because it changes. Now I'm going, okay, I'll do the QR code. And sometimes I don't even have to carry a business card if I don't have a business card. And I have a CAPE statement like I did yesterday at this event, ran out of business cards, but I had a CAPE statement. And guess what? I just carried that with me, and I was like, hey, scan it. So, and you know what?
True. And
you know what else?
They love that.
This is a good point.
What?
Especially now, people really don't want a sheet of paper. So if you can have all your information on have a QR code that they could scan, I think they like that better. When you go into matchmaking, one-on-ones, conferences, I started at the National 8A conference in February. Everybody was like, "Oh, you have this new software that you can use, and it picks it up." And so, but the key is you must have a capability statement. Forget about it, whether it's paper or virtual. You must have it. But just be aware that some people will say, "Oh, can I get this virtual?" So.
Right. So having said that, the capability statements, using the QR code or using just one side. I've heard people say use both sides, but I personally like one side because I oftentimes will turn it over and make notes on the back if there are key points or key opportunities that I want to remember about the individual or the company. And so, capability statement is based on past performance, experience, technical experience, and if you have certifications, right, you want to have those on there, meaning like, woman, veteran, minority, hub zone. But it also includes professional certifications, ISO 9000 or PMP, or, professional engineer kind of certifications. And so when we're looking at, capability statements, we also have to say, what if I am lacking in a capability, and the acquisition seems to be, I know I can do it, but I don't have all the capability. What would you suggest, if you're talking partnerships or teaming? What are some of the things that they should consider? And I want you all to, the audience, to put in the chat, what are some of the things that you think about or are concerned about when you're thinking about a teaming partner or a subcontract arrangement?
I'll chime in. I work with companies often, like it's a core service that we offer, matchmaking, building teams, and we also vet company for larger businesses and other government contract opportunities. One thing I would say is the vetting. Just because a company has capabilities that they've documented, it does not mean that you should just go with that. You also have to do your due diligence to find out more about the contracts, the dollar value, uh, the details of the past contracts, and you can even ask for reference, because anyone can present to you their capabilities, but how they performed is what's most important. And then also, are you going to be able to work well with this vendor, this other vendor? Everyone does not work well together, even from a management and like personality perspective. So you want to get to know your potential partner, and then do they already have other partners? Is this their first time? Are they experienced with Workshare? What do they know about the customer? How are you all going to work together? Get that in great details. Make sure it's documented properly. So it's more to it than just getting a partner that has a certain certification or capability. You have to vet your partners and make sure that you all are compatible and that you can deliver for the customer, because in the end, that's what's most important.
So true, so true. Is there any comments in the chat about things that, let me see what somebody said. That was my comment. About partners. One of the things that, because partnerships, is another way of not only increasing capacity, but it also increases capability. And we talked a little bit about this last night, and Chanel brought up a good point. Be careful who you marry, date around. I joke with my my vet biz ladies, and I tell them it's easy. It may be easier to get rid of a husband than it is a business partner, because that thing, you can come to an agreement, even if it's tough. Oftentimes, with a business partner, there's work tied to it, and there's reputation, your business reputation that's tied to it. So I think that's one of the things that are so important about selecting a business partner. Another thing is, look at their employee turnover. What is their culture? If the prime or the business partner is the prime, and they have the program manager position, and that program manager's a little toxic, and you have a culture where it's non-toxic, it's going to cause your people to want to leave, and thereby impacting your turnover if that's an issue. What are some other things that people should consider and put in the chat. Hey, Lamont, thank you for joining. Thanks again, Nia and Tanisha and Kathy, Antoinette, Jonathan. Thank you again for joining. Please share it out. I need you all to participate in the chat, because I said yesterday, whoever's here every day, or the most days, they're going to get a prize. And so please, only way we know you're here is if we see you in the chat. What are the other things? Lamont said positive and negative areas of overlap. So are you saying, Lamont, let me see if I can, are you saying that if there's an overlap in skill sets, is that what you're saying, Lamont? I'm not sure if that's what you mean by that. I'll wait for you to type in the chat if you're able to. In the meanwhile, ladies,
yes, I wanted to continue to add on to what Chanel said by giving a real ongoing thing that I'm going. I had a company approach me about in February to team on an opportunity, and I said, okay, yes, we could talk. We'll schedule a meeting. It took a while, but in the meantime, between the time we had our first conversation to the time we had our meeting, which was about 4 weeks, I put on my auditing hat, and I put on my auditing hat.
Tell us about it, girl. Tell us about it. Tell about it. Did you run the background check?
I did everything.
Give us all the juice.
Look, I did everything but pay for a background check. Guess I went to USA Spending. I looked to see what contracts they had in the past. I looked to see how much were these contracts. I did a Google search. I looked up all the people whose names were associated with this company. And I started doing research on them. So by the time we had our first conversation, first real conversation about meeting together, where it was like our first meet. It was like the first time we met, it was, hey, let's go on a date.
The first date, girl. It was the first
and on
date.
The first date, where we talked about ourselves and everything, I had a list of questions. I asked.
Good for you. Oh, good. You came with your checklist, like many of these ladies do. They got their list of what the perfect Prince Charming is and what he needs to have, and you had your list.
I had a list, and there were questions like, why?
I'm not mad at you.
Okay, so why did this happen? It was the conversation was very flowing. The conversation was very smooth. We laughed in the conversation, almost like dating, right? We laughed, but we stayed on topic. The conversation, it lasted over an hour. And they said, okay, we're looking at someone else, but we'll let you know. And I said, okay, that's fine. And I said, I'm going to email you another set of questions that I may have.
They got skirts.
And so I did exactly what I did. I did exactly what I said. I asked for CPARs, and I got CPARs.
Yes. You know what? And
they gave me their CPARs.
I think, can you type in the chat some of the things that, I don't know if you can see the comments.
I can't.
You can type right there.
I can't, and I'm scared to touch a button because it'll kick me out.
Oh, Lord Jesus. All right, come on, help me, Tanisha. Repeat those things, because I want everybody to have. So you did.
I asked for CPARs. I asked. Why? Because they had the contract in the past. They had it like from 2003 to
Mhm.
2018, and then they didn't have it for the last 5
Mhm.
years, and so now it's coming back up. And
So
I was
why'd
like,
they
okay,
lose the
so
contract?
what
Okay.
happened that you guys weren't able to continue on with the contract? And they gave me the whole history.
Mhm.
And
Got you.
I asked
And what
why.
else
I
did you
asked,
ask?
how long have you, no, I asked him, I said, do you have any past experience, either as an employee with this particular agency? That caught them off guard
Mhm.
because they said, no one has ever asked if I worked for the agency. And guess what?
Mhm.
They had worked for the
Mm.
agency before they got the contract.
which is very
Mm.
common.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's a good question to ask because that's
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
a lot
Mm-hmm.
of companies that you see are sole sourced. I had a customer and they sent me a list and they said, Chanel, all these companies are getting sole sourced. Like, why am I not getting sole sourced? So I did a review, and over 80% of those companies had past employees that were in leadership.
Yes. Wow. Wow.
Yeah. And
Wow.
so
And what else?
so
What else? Keep on now, because time is
yeah.
clicking. I just need the list. So I'm typing it as
So
you're saying it.
because that opportunity is in an agency that I have a current contract in, I then went to my core and I said, have you heard of this company? And guess what? They had.
Huh.
And I go, so what have you heard?
Huh.
And the response was all
Uh-huh.
positive.
Okay.
And, and truthfully, guys, this is my first time doing this. I'm
Oh, you did good.
it's my first time. It was my first time doing this. And so I just, and then I also went, Lisa Anderson, my coach,
Uh-huh.
I called her and I said, okay, this is what's going on. What else should I do? I'm saying this to say, you don't have to do this in a vacuum. You don't have to come up with these questions in a vacuum. Just, ask someone who has past experience in federal contracting, who has experience in federal contract. What have they done? Or what do they suggest? And I say that because I find myself sometimes just being in my own vacuum in my office here in Texas.
Somebody said, what is CPARS? I'm going to put that on the
Okay,
screen. Thank you,
I thought that was going to be one of the
Using
first questions, and I was trying to find
It's
the Contractor Performance Assessment Rating System.
It's like the report card. Yeah.
Right. You get a grade.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like your report
Oh,
card.
yeah.
Go
So
ahead,
it's like the report
Chanel.
card. And then also, in addition to the things that Stephanie mentioned, these are some of the things that I do with company. I help other companies vet, their partners, or when I'm on a team. We also ask for commercial contracts, state, local contracts. What other partners do they have? Large businesses, small business. Are they already pursuing this customer? Have they worked with the customer in any capacity in the last 10 years? I ask for the contract language from their past contracts that are relevant, because sometimes people can present information to you and it's not exactly what your customers looking for, what the bid requires. So I always ask for the details from the past contracts. In addition to looking in SAM, I also look in USA spending, because some contracts are confidential and they may not list in any of these systems because it's a confidential contract. So you also can inquire and say, do you have any contracts that are top secret or secret? And they're not going to give you the details, but at least you'll know if there are any intelligence or like DoD agencies. Also, you can go in SAM to check to see if they were banned, or you want to go and check in SAM just to
On the excluded list,
parties, and make sure they have active SAM registration. The reason why, if you partner with someone, you all go to bid and they don't have active registration, that can mess up your bid. So this is things you can do. Also, I asked them for 3 contracts that are relevant, unless they're, if they're new, but I asked them for references for those contracts as well. So I'm doing the vetting before it even gets to the agency.
So vet not just the company, but vet the people as well in the company.
Yes, because some people have already been on contracts. One recent opportunity, I just happened to look up the executives because I just like to do things like that. Mostly from my past experience working with federal government, I know that these are things they also do internally sometimes. And one of the executives and program managers had something related to mismanagement of monies on their record, a public record. So therefore, they would have been a program manager over financial management if you partner with them and you didn't do due diligence. The agency can see that later, if they were to be a key personnel. So you also, like Stephanie said, vet the people, that are a part of the leadership teams or the key personnel, especially because this is something that also the federal government will end up doing later on anyways, or any government agency you're working with.
Anything else? That's all good stuff. I mean, hey, I feel sorry for whoever y'all children marry. They in trouble. Or even date. I'm just saying. Yeah, they are in trouble. But this is all very, very, very good stuff. And that's what I tell the ladies is that you need to treat this like somebody you were dating. You would check their Facebook out. You would check social media. You would know what their favorite football team is, what kind of activities they're into. And also, the reason social media is important because if you have certain values, right, that your company stands for, and you're about to partner with a company that has values opposite of yours and it would bother you. Some people say money is green, I don't care. It'll come to a point where you're going to care. It may not be immediately, but something going to come up where you're going to care if it violates one of your primary
also
values.
Something you need to watch for when partnering. I work with companies often that partner, they get the contract and then their partner, it doesn't work out, but they already secured the contract, so they have to execute. Make sure you understand the contract and you know what's required. You learn your customer. In any event that you have to, do something or know more about the customer or their line of business, that you have someone on your team. It doesn't have to be the owner, someone, a SME, subject matter expert, someone familiar with the agency. Because if you don't, you can be put in a situation where you're solely depending on your partner. And if your partner does not come through, you still have to deliver. So you always want to make sure from your company's perspective that you are aware of what the requirements are and you have the technical and administrative capabilities to deliver on your own if necessary.
And that's so true. One of the things that was mentioned last night is to be in the room. So when they do the kickoff meetings, any meetings they're having with the government, if they respect and value you as a teaming partner, you should be there. Somebody from your company should be there, so you're hearing
yes
things
and to your point, GI, I actually had a contract where I was in the kickoff meeting as a sub, and the government could not execute the contract that day, although they wanted us to start right away, because I knew the customer space and my partners didn't know, they just weren't aware. And the government had to pretty much fix some of the deliverables on their end, modification, because their team was not ready. But had I not known the customer space or been present in the meeting, that could have been something that in the long run would have hurt our company. But because we, in our partnership, because we came in knowing the agency, knowing their challenges and how we would address them right away, they knew that we knew what we were doing. But also it helped us when we had troubles in the contract because they were already aware from the beginning. But that's only because everyone was in the room.
Well, I want to thank everybody for joining. I'm glad that you're still here. It's 7:51. We've been talking about, one of the most critical ways that you can just catapult your capacity is by picking the right partner, the right teaming partner, or the right mentor. Um, and let me just say that, especially for areas in which you are not that skilled or don't understand that technical piece, it's very important that you have someone on your team who does understand. The other thing that I've seen is read that contract extremely close. I love to tell the story about one of the Vet Biz ladies was saying, "Hey, I've done a teaming agreement with these folks. They're getting contracts, and I'm not getting anything. I'm not getting FTEs because this was a butts in seat contract." And guess what? I said, "Well, read the paragraph where it talks about you, your agreement of what you're going to get." She said, "We're supposed to get 10 FTEs." I said, "Well, read the paragraph." The paragraph said up to 10. Even her lawyer or whoever she had reviewing that missed that. Up to is 0 to 10. Guess what? I said, "You're probably not going to get anything on that." But yet they had used their capability and past performance to get those contracts, but they weren't getting the benefit of that. And so it's very important that it be clear you're going to get, so many FTEs. You're going to get, the PM position, and don't be so happy, I should say, to get any position, because you want positions that will allow you to have make some revenue on those positions. Not that the positions are so high cost and the market for that position is so high that you end up breaking even, unless that's part of your strategy. And I don't know if Chanel, you want to talk about that.
Yes. So something that is not discussed is that some companies do not profit. They either break even, they may take a loss, or it's minimal profit. So you want to know about and sometimes this is even specific to an agency. Like some agencies are historically known for having certain rates higher or lower, or the line of business. Then you have some requirements that govern like how much a particular classification of a position and how much they have to pay minimal or max. So also you want to do your pricing where you know how much how much your revenue is, and especially if it's a work share, because if you're going into an opportunity, and you need to know the market too, because if you're going into an opportunity and, for example, if you have a customer that requires a lot more than average, many of these key personnel or SMEs, they know the agencies better than the companies if they've been at their agency. So they may charge more for that customer. For example, they may charge you $100 an hour and you only bid it $125 because you didn't know the market, or you don't know like what that customer space is. So you have to also know, what type of projects you're going on. Is it a project that's considered mission critical? Then you can price higher. So you need to know all these details, so when you go to do your pricing, you know what your profit margin is. And then sometimes I mean, I would recommend companies sometimes maybe you break even. For example, I've been on contracts where the company may not have made much off of my position because it was a SME or like a high level project manager, mission critical. But I expanded the contract because I helped the agency to understand the requirements, so they added more positions. Not because we did that intentionally, it's just that it organically grew because I knew the space. So the company would end up expanding. And some of these companies that I've worked for in the past, like I know after I left, they've grown substantially. And many times it's because the customer trusts, that the company now can deliver. So they expanded the portfolio. They bring them all type of requirements. But you know, in that case, it worked out if a company breaks even or took a loss because then they still gain because the customer expanded their portfolio. But these are things that you would pay attention to, you know, and you'll learn. Yes,
It's part of your strategy, right? It's not just done by act. It
yes,
didn't just happenstance. It was part of the strategy. I'm going to invest
who knows
in
the space.
someone like Chanel who has that skill,
Yes,
right? Because I know that she knows the space and she's going to be part of my BD strategy is really what, Chanel is saying. And then the other way I've seen it, Chanel, as well, is that if you have a really good teaming partner, you all decide to go after several opportunities together. You may be the lead on this, and I know I'm not going to make a lot of money on this, but I'm going to be the lead on the next one, and I'm
yes,
going to make money. I've seen people
yes.
work
So
that way as
you
well.
share your
Mm-hmm.
work share opportunities per contract. So for
Mm-hmm.
example, and then another thing you want to pay attention to is when you have key personnel, if you're an owner of the company and you always want to be in front of the customer, yes, you have to, you know, show your face to show that you're involved at some point or someone from your leadership. But sometimes you have to read the room and find out who the customer likes and who they like working with because you can organically grow your contract just
Mm-hmm.
because the customer like your key personnel. For example, sometimes I don't plan on staying on contracts, but because I know that I work well with the customer and it's for the benefit of everyone, you know, you stick around. Sometimes it's not me. It may be a subordinate. So you also want to read the room. It does the customer like your partner more? Like these are things that we could tell easily. How many contracts does your partner have there already? And like Stephanie said, if she's already in the agency, she already has some level of contacts or understanding. Then, for example, in that case, I would say, hey, maybe you want to go ahead and take lead on this. And it doesn't matter our size or how many other contracts we have. She's already positioned in the agency. So it's all about strategy.
It is, and I love Stephanie. Jump in at any time. I love this conversation because one of the fastest and best ways to grow your business, especially deeper and wider, is through partners. And if you got somebody like Stephanie and Chanel, who understand the importance of vetting, and after you go through, all of this vetting, then what that does is allow you to build a long-term relationship where you continue to go after, opportunities. And sometimes those relationships last 5, 6, 7, 10 years. It just, really depends. And then there's times when it's time to break up. And I'm gonna tell you, I as a leader who has, led thousands of people. I've had 7,000 people work for me, and people will tell you one thing: fire fast, fire fast. It don't get better with time.
Mm-hmm.
Let it go.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think that's so important. It's hard to do. I can't afford to. Can you afford not
And
to?
then and that's
Is that
true.
my
And for
question?
me, even as a sub, a SME, or you know, even if I come on under someone else's contract as an expert, sometimes I'll fire myself, or I'll say, "Yeah, we need to fire. You know, we need to fire this person because if I'm bumping heads with someone on the contract and this person plays a vital role, I'll dismiss myself, or I'll say we need to replace that person because that is something that companies take too long to do.
Yes.
You'll mess up your
Yes.
whole contract portfolio trying to keep one person because you like them from a personal perspective. This is business and you got to deliver for the customer. The customer does not want to work with people they don't like. I know that's something that's not talked about, but if you have problem people, you know,
Girl,
you
but
have
let's have the
people
conversation.
that are
Let's have the
problematic or they're bumping heads with the wrong people, is bad for business.
Yes.
And that can include the owner. So, or
Yes.
me or you, you know, we just have to know when to step back.
I
Mm-hmm.
yes,
Go ahead, Steph.
a lot of what Chanel has said, I am actually I have lived it. I got my first contract last year in October. My first 8A contract,
Wow.
first federal contract. So by January, there was a little challenge with the wording of the contract, and it could have been to my detriment. Actually, it was to my detriment But you know what I did? I showed up.
Hmm.
I flew from Houston to DC. I had a meeting with the program office, 3 of them, the core, the program manager, and the division manager. Had a meeting with them. We discussed the changes. We agreed in theory what the changes were going to be, but we had not determined from a financial standpoint. So guess what I did? I said, I see a whiteboard. Can I go to the whiteboard? And they were like, yeah. I go to the whiteboard, and based on the theory we had agreed, I put dollar amounts to it. And I came to a final dollar amount. And I said, here's the difference. I said, now you guys figure out how you handle it in the system. I said, but we agreed. They were like, can we take a picture of that? And I was like, don't worry. I'm gonna send you a spreadsheet with this. So this was in February. Can I tell y'all what happened last Monday?
What happened?
They
Tell us
said,
what happened, girl.
we need to add this to your contract. We need to add this additional service. And I have
wow. Why do you think that happened? Let me ask you. Let me
wait. And I have two more people. So I went.
Wow. No. But I want to know, why do you think they were willing to make that change?
Because
that's really what I wanted. Why?
First of all, I showed up, and I'm about to go. I'm about to go Bible on it. I showed up to the battlefield. I showed up.
Oh.
I showed up. I was professional.
Wow.
And
you knew your business.
I listened to them, and they listened to me. There was much professionalism and respect in the room. And because truthfully, the day that we had the meeting, at the end, they were like, well, what else do you do?
Okay.
And I was like, oh, okay. And then they were, and guess what they said?
Okay, girl.
Let us show you around the floor.
What? Oh, can we hold on, wait a minute. You live in somebody's dream now, right? I'm just saying. Because what you're explaining right now, Steph, is what I tell companies to do all the time. Turn the funnel upside down, right? Everybody says, oh, you put BD, you put 100 opportunities or in here, and then you hope to come out with 10. I tell people, turn the funnel upside down with the slim part at the top. Be very narrowly focused. Go into one agency.
Rock
their world. And they become part of your business development strategy, because when they like you, they know you, they trust you, you have proven, just like you did, you know what you're talking about. Now they want to walk you around, and then the funnel goes out. You're in the one agency, and then your business opportunity spreads out like the wide part of the funnel and begins to go across the agency, and they are the one getting you in doors that you could never get into.
And that's what's happening, guys. That is actually what happened. I had my funnel, I had down to 4 agencies. And now I'm only at 2. And really, and they are working themselves. But the thing I want you to know, the thing I want you to get out of what I'm saying, show up. Don't be afraid. This is my first federal contract. And I showed up.
Wow.
I showed up to have a difficult conversation.
You were sure.
Inside I was. I'm gonna be honest. Inside I was, but on the outside, I didn't show my fear. But I showed up to the battlefield. And if y'all know what happened at the battlefield, or if you don't know what happened at the battlefield, Go read 2
David and
Chronicles
Goliath.
chapter 20.
I love it. Chanel, were
Yes,
you gonna jump
that's
in?
what Stephanie is saying. It's happened time and time again. Sometimes I've been able to be a part of the teams. And
Mhm.
for example, a company that I worked with when I first started in the industry, so it was well over 10 years, closer to 15. I still work with them as a partner in different ways because they know that for one they want people who deliver. And then if you know the agency, the customers, and they like you, people are going to keep you around. uh Most all
True.
agencies, I can't think of any that I haven't like partnered or been a SME on where my partner's company has not expanded significantly just from, just from having me as a SME. And that just because customers tell me this, we like working with you. It's not that you're the largest company or you may not even have every capability that we're looking for, but we like working with you. You solve problems, you know how to work with people at all levels, and that's important. um Agencies have said, hey, come back, we want you to do this whole cycle. So we're sometimes turning away business because once you get into a customer space and you deliver, they'll bring you the work. You don't even have to do BD. Your BD is that you deliver. If you can
That's
deliver,
true.
that's your BD
That's true.
strategy. Go in, deliver give the customer what they want. They'll do the marketing for you. We were in one customer space
They sure
where
do.
my prime was getting so much work just for my task orders individually and growing my team. He came and said, "Hey, what are you saying to these people? We've been here for a long time and they bring you everything." And it got to the point where they had to pull me out of meetings because the customer would include me in spaces where our prime wanted to bid. But I'm just saying that to say when the customer, you deliver. It's not even about for me kissing up to them. It's just my marketing strategy and BD strategy is just to give them what we proposed above and beyond. They're always going to get more. Learn the stakeholders,
Mhm.
know who you're working with. Yeah, know who you're
Know who
talking.
you're talking to.
Yeah,
Not just what. Just I want to piggyback on something because, many times vendors think they're talking to the person
yes,
in power, or they think they're not talking to the person in power, and they don't use their emotional intelligence, their market research, asking people, well, who is that? Just because that's not the person saying anything, just because that's not the person who is, the loudest or sitting at the head of the table, doesn't mean that they're not an influencer in your future business or even in the current contract. And so it really is about knowing who you're serving and not treating anybody. I don't care if it seems like a secretary. Treat everybody. Customer service and professionalism at all times is key to building your capability. And then I just came from a conference. I have to hit on this. After hours is important. Okay, I don't drink, haven't had a drink in 30 years. I may have had a sip of wine, but that's about it. One sip. Okay, but what I'm telling you is that I watch business owners lose business because they do not realize these are not your buddies. These are not your boys. These are not your girls. This is not the time for the turn up, the turnout, and wearing anything, doing anything. People are watching. You're being interviewed. You're being assessed. And there are people I've seen government folks say, they just lost that opportunity. You don't know what's being said. So please, please, please save the turn up, the getting drunk, the wearing inappropriate things. Oh, by the way, approaching government employees in a wrong way. This is not your dating scene. I just have to go big sis on y'all and just say, don't do it. And I'm off my soapbox.
yes, yes.
Because remember, these people
Everything
help you
counts.
later.
So always, I've heard, just like Michelle said, I've heard people say, "Oh, seen this person at this event," or they said something in conversation in passing. So people are always paying attention, and yes, be mindful of being respectful and pretty much to everyone, because you never know who is, a decision maker, but also just to be a kind person in general, because no one wants to work with people who are, nasty. Like, people want to work with people they can get along with. Sometimes you may have customers that are like that. It doesn't mean that you have to do things in an unprofessional manner to get back, at them, or to document it, or to push back. It's ways of doing those things. But also, I'll give an example, just one example of, you never know who you're speaking with. For example, when I was a federal employee, I worked on a program. My chief, she was over several programs, and we worked with the senior directors in the agency, the leadership, all the way up to the assistant secretary. For the programs, they would come to me for decision making on many of the things. Most of the vendors would go to the director or the agency officials, or whoever they thought was highest ranking. You have to pay attention to the landscape. Many times those senior executives, they're depending on their staff to make decisions. So you may be working with the admin or program analyst, and that person may weigh in. Even if they're not an official decision maker, they may be weighing in on, how what experience did you have with this vendor. But also, uh, as senior executives, they are depending on their lower level of leadership for insight, and because you have to work with their staff, not just your senior executive. Another mistake I see is companies, they try to judge and gauge if they're going to respect someone by their title. That's a big mistake in government, because you just don't know who you're working with, and you may disrespect the wrong person. I've actually witnessed firsthand encounters where people have had bad experiences, and I've tried to, like, give them heads up, or I sometimes I had to sit back and watch it if they just go full force. But you never know who you're working with, and you can disrespect the wrong person. For example, if you're working with contracts officers, budget officers, and cores, and you think you only need to respect the senior leadership in that program, you're making a big mistake, because they're not the only decision maker. So things like that, you just have to pay attention to who the stakeholders are. What role do they play? You may be reaching out to the wrong person about the opportunity. So it's just things like that.
That happens all the time in the VA, because we have what we call procurement decision makers. A procurement decision maker is a person that has the requirement, they have the budget, and they have the authority to make the decision on it. Other times, those three different roles are three different people, or sometimes people may have the budget and the decision authority, but not have the requirement. Sometimes they have the requirement and the budget, but then a contracting officer or contracting specialist is really the one performing the administrative and legal review aspect of the contract. So then they go, oh, you're trying to build a relationship with these people to build your capabilities and build your capacity and opportunities within the organization. And then I've had, veterans get mad, say, well, they're withholding information from me. No, they're not. They don't know that information. If they don't tell you, it's either because they can't or they don't know it. And sometimes things are stovepipes. So, I always say, take time to learn the organization, how it works. And once someone know, like, and trust you, like Stephanie was talking about, that is a great opportunity not to sell. I tell people, stop selling, solve, right? And once they know, like, and trust you, ask them questions. Ask them the questions that you would need to know, like, okay, who's that? What is their role? And what do they do? Not, I do this and you're so busy trying to get to the next. No, build the relationships. Find out the landscape, because we know that government agencies are very complex, and who does what and where it's located. Those kinds of things only come from understanding those things at a very intimate level only come from long-term relationships or you worked in the agency. Who said somebody integrity, maintaining it at all times? Absolutely, Nia. We are at 8:16. We're going to wrap up in the next about 10 minutes, probably more like 7, because I want to give these ladies the opportunity to do some closing remarks. Would you please, if you have a question, please put it in the chat. If you have a comment, put it in the chat. Follow these ladies. Follow all of the folks that are normally here. Lori Smith, Linda Gray, Coach Sean, Lisa Anderson, Dr. Travis Davis, and then you have Chanel and Stephanie here. So please, come join us next Wednesday, 7 to 8 p.m. This capacity and capability conversation is so important because that's where scaling comes in. You mastering these, and it's not just go and do it. It is the strategy. It is taking your time. It is building relationships. It's building your skill sets. It's building your team through building your capability through your team, meaning you can bring on some 1099s and build, some capacity and capability there, and realizing that, like Stephanie said, show up. Like Chanel said, deliver what you said you were going to do. And guess what? When you're in the door, you do those things, more opportunities will come your way. And I love what Stephanie said. Don't be afraid of the difficult conversation. Remember, you're buying from the U.S. government, but it is its people who are people too. Government employees are people too, who are buying and executing these acquisition actions. So, be respectful, be mindful, and know that sometimes, anytime you're dealing with people, there's going to be a tough conversation that you have to have. And one of the things that Lori said yesterday that I think is worth repeating is that you have to be confident and not be afraid. Not be afraid to have the difficult conversation if they're adding new requirements, to have the conversation that you need to be compensated for it, to have the conversation that, oh, by the way, guess what? I need my CPARs because that's important to me and the future of my, of my company and business. Don't be afraid if you've tried to get paid and they're not paying. You need to say something. And the Office of Small Business at every federal agency is not the person, the office you go to if you're not being paid. If you have other issues that you can't seem to solve, the Office of Small Business is your small business advocate and is there to protect your small business concerns. Hey, thanks, Lamont. I see you say you got your cousin in the room. Thanks, everyone, for joining. I want to let these ladies have a few last words, a few takeaways. If you put your takeaways in the chat as well, and just tell us, what do you think you want to make sure they remember around talking about capability and even capacity and building it and
Sure.
avoiding any pitfalls.
I'd say whatever you list on your capability statement, make sure you're actually capable of delivering that, because sometimes, or you have a partner or someone that can deliver, because sometimes businesses put too much or they exaggerate their capabilities and they get into the customer space, and say you were to get a contract, you want to be able to deliver. So maybe you'll get a partner, but make sure you can do the things that you said you can do, and that you have capacity to deliver, and that you don't lowball too often without strategy. Because yes, you want to secure contracts, but you want to be able to maintain quality employees so that your customer can be satisfied. And sometimes those employees cost more than what you anticipate paying. So you just want to make sure that you're capable, you have capacity, and that you also have competent staff.
Okay, to continue with Chanel, don't, on your capability statement, don't try to be a jack of all trades. Don't have 25 NAICS codes on your capability statement. Narrow it down to what you do well, to what your past performance can support, and not try to be a jack of all trade and have NAICS codes from IT, from science, from the scientific arena. So just tighten it up. But most importantly, be your authentic self, because you know what? They're going to see through it. They will know when you are faking, and they will know when you are being true. So just be true to yourself and be true to them, and success will come.
Amen to that. And I want to reiterate what you said, especially for those companies. I talked to a young lady last week. She says, "Oh, I'm thinking everybody says I need to get my 8A." And I said, "Why?" "Well, I just need to." And I said, "Why?" And she didn't have a good response other than, everybody says I should. And I said, have you thought about the strategy? Is the timing right? Do you have the relationships already? Because you don't want to have your 8A for, a couple of years while you're building relationships. You should already have those relationships. And then the other thing is, I want to piggyback on Stephanie. A lot of these 8A companies, they're over here doing janitorial services, and then they're over here doing IT, and then they're doing construction. The whole intent of an 8A program is to help you learn how to build business, how to develop business. And there's a reason why more than 70% of companies, after their 8A, they're either out of business or their business revenue goes down because they didn't learn, one, how to build capacity in a very small niched area so that you have deep experience in construction and deep experience maybe in janitorial services. Not I'm all over everything anybody said was 8A, I take it. And so at the end of those 9 years, I've got all of this wide, shallow experience. It's important that you have the relationships and that you know why and when it's a good time to become 8A certified. So we're at 8:24. I want to say tonight has just been amazing, ladies. We're going to be here on Thursday and Friday. And if you want and can join us, we generally are only an hour, but we were having so much fun today. I thought we would do our normal Wednesday hour and a half. So thank you so much for joining us. I want to thank Kathy and Nia and Tanisha and Lamont. I can't tell who this LinkedIn user is, but hello there. It's not, your name's not coming up. I also want to thank Tara and Kathy and I think Antoinette and who else was up here? Another gentleman. Where did he go? I don't see him anymore, but I do want to thank you all for coming. There may have been others who didn't comment in the chat. Oh, hey, Yolanda. But if you make a comment in the chat and you are here 5 out of the 7 days, come on now, you're going to get a prize. And I promise you, it's a good one. But you have to have put comments in the chat, and you can have viewed it after on the replay. You have to be live. But tomorrow we're going to be talking about the Benjamins. We're going to talk about capital. And so Chanel, tell Iman if she wants to join in, she's more than welcome to. But You ladies have been tremendous. I want to thank you, Stephanie. Congratulations again on all the accolades from
Thank
SBA
you.
recognition. Thank you, Chanel, for joining. As always, just your impact and generosity on the community is so much appreciated. I want to say, Stephanie, you live in a dream, girl. You need to journal that, because that's a roadmap for some folks. Might be some nuggets. That's why I said, wait a minute. I want to ask you some questions, because I want to dissect it so you can then help other people rinse and repeat and do what you did. But I want to thank everybody for joining. I always say this, and I truly, truly mean it. You could have been any place doing anything else, but you made a decision to invest in your business, to invest in this community. I want to thank our panelists, our generous panelists. I want to thank our very loyal listeners, whether you're listening tonight or later. I hope you found it enjoyable. But next week, we're going back to audio only, maybe, unless y'all tell me y'all got to show some love and tell me, no, we like this, where we can chat live. If y'all like that, we might continue doing our Wednesday 7 demystifying government contracts 7 to 8 live. So you all let me know. But again, thank you for being here, and we will see you tomorrow. We're going to talk about culture. Not culture. We're going to talk about capital tomorrow. And then we're going to talk about compliance on Friday. Y'all don't miss compliance. Now, come on, Miss Audit, Stephanie. If you can make it on Friday, we need you. We need you and Chanel here on Friday.
Yeah.
But anyway, thank you so much. And I do want to say good night, and I appreciate you
Thank
more
you,
than
everyone,
words
for
can say.
attending. Thank you, Michelle, for the platform, and I'm happy to do this.
Same here.
Oh, it's a
Thank you.
pleasure.
Thank you, ladies. Thank
Stephanie.
you, ladies and gentlemen who joined us tonight. And I learned. I'm still learning. Chanel said stuff I didn't realize where I was. I just know I'm just doing day by day. Chanel, you enlightened me on what I'm really, really doing. So thank you so much, Chanel.
Oh,
Thank you.
anytime. I'm happy to do this.
That's the beauty of this space. I just love it. All boats rise together. And that's what this is about. There's more than enough. More than enough. And I pray that, one, this community will be a community that when they see an opportunity and it does not have their name on it, it does not have your NAICS code on it, that you will look for someone within this community that you've gotten to know, and you don't have to know them. Just tell them about the opportunity and let them do their thing. So I do want to say thank you, and it's my pleasure. And I'm going to say good night. God bless. May God continue to enlarge your territory, enlarge and expand your influence. May he also expand your business opportunities, get you in doors, open doors that may now be closed. But I do want to say, may he bless you, or bless you, or bless you indeed. May he keep you from evil. May he keep evil from you, because we do know there's some evil out there. But most of all, God bless you, and good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.